How's it going, everyone? It's your boy, King Calf, and I was gonna make another video, but we had the release of Redfall, and Redfall, I wasn't really looking forward to this game before. I just thought, it's on Game Pass, I'll probably try it out, just see how it is, but, Xbox has not really been hitting that well lately, and I am just so surprised of what we got with Redfall. So I just wanted to give my first impression. I've been playing it for maybe about, I don't know, 3, 4 hours. So, I'm not crazy far into it, but I wanted to give my first impression just because everybody and their mother is giving their impression on this game. So I, downloaded it right when it came out. I tried it. I played it on PC just because, I saw that it's not 60 FPS on consoles. I have a Series X, but, to be honest, I don't really play my Series X that much, just because there hasn't really been anything out. And if there is, I'd rather just play it on PC just because it usually runs better. Usually because PC's kind of been getting the shit end of the stick with games like Jedi Survivor. Luckily, I got that on PS5. But aside from that, I just couldn't believe what I was playing. I like Arcane Studios. I played Dishonored. I played all the Dishonors. I played Deathloop. Wasn't really a fan of Deathloop. Played Prey. Prey was good. And I just couldn't believe that Arcane Studios, this company that's so, famous for these really intricate single player games, released a multiplayer looter shooter. And aside from, the style of the game, just how bad and how rough it was just really was weird. This is a little different than how I do my videos. I usually have a little bit of a script. I'm trying to go off script, a little bit more just so I can give you guys like, some unfiltered opinions just because I feel that, sometimes a lot of communication gets lost when you have a script. So this is just like the top of my head. I'm just talking about Redfall and, how my experience has been when I've been playing it. So, everybody knows that the game doesn't run well. There's so many bugs, dumb AI, and just a very, very obvious lack of polish within everything. Even the look of the game, it looks last gen. And now, you know, Arcane's never really been like this company that is so graphically advanced and they like to hit the next step of, next gen. Like they've never been like that. They have a certain style. Dishonored wasn't the best looking game, but it just had this really cool, charming look to it that had like this Victorian style, and it worked in the game's favor. Deathloop, it kind of was given like that retro kind of like Quentin Tarantino look. It was cool. It had a style, it had an identity. That's the word I want to use. It had an identity. It looked cool. You can get sucked into the world because it had that aesthetic. But with Redfall, it just looks so generic. It just like I see what they're trying to do. They want this like, this homey kind of like dark, but it used to be a nice place, town in Massachusetts. But man, like it's just something about the world, like it's just so bland. And there's just big craters in between parts of the land, and there's like nothing there. There's like maybe ambulances that you can like go and open. That's not that sick, like I'm not really a big fan of that. But man, I played a couple hours, and when I first played, right from the start, I'm not even kidding, right from the start, when I started playing the game, just the Arcane Studio logo before the game even started was just glitching. I was just like, oh man, because, I saw some earlier coverage of the game before it came out. Everybody saw it. Everybody knew that the game was a buggy mess before it actually released to the public. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll play and see what I deal with. And I just couldn't believe that before the game started, I was having some stutter. And I don't have like the craziest PC. I got a 3070 Ti. I got 32 gigs of RAM. Like, it's a mid-range comp, but it's pretty good. Like I'm able to play everything in well over 60 FPS usually. And when I was playing that and the frame rate was like dropping to 10 just from the logo, I'm like, oh man, like either I can't play this game because my computer's not strong enough, or this game is just a mess. When the game started, I was running in 60 FPS. I was fine. Everything was okay. But then as I started playing, you know, I started to see where these frame rates were coming out. It wasn't even just like when I went to large open maps. Like sometimes I'd be fine 60 FPS and then I'd open like a bathroom door and it would just drop to 30 FPS and I'm like, okay, so this isn't like my PC. This is just a problem with the actual game because there's no reason why the bathroom that has a lot less frames to generate should be lagging more than the open space. Open space I'm running over 60. Like I don't understand the problem. But aside from that, I picked Jacob just because I thought I like to play stealthy in these games, in arcade games. I really like to play stealthy, like in Dishonored. That's why I love Dishonored so much because it thrives off stealth. I always love playing stealthy, and I couldn't believe I couldn't believe my first experience when I got a stealth kill. I didn't know that all your guy did was just a little punch. I thought you would have some cool animation, stab him, shoot him in the head, at least choke him out. There's not a lot of animations into choking out, but for some reason they couldn't even do that. They half-assed it so much that all you just do is a little punch in the butt, and I think that's kind of ridiculous, or a gun, or an elbow in the butt, or whatever in the crotch. And I just couldn't believe it. That's all we got. I was like, really? Like, you guys could have at least reused an animation from Dishonored. Like, I'm sure you could have reused something that wouldn't have taken time, but apparently it was too much. Whatever. I got into my first gunfight with some raiders, and just how the AI was just running right at me. They weren't trying to take cover. They weren't trying to like flank me. No, they were running in like a straight line towards me, no cover, just trying to shoot. They were missing their shots. All I had to do was just doing a little sidestep or a little jump, and could not hit me. And then they would just die in 2 shots. And I'm like, okay, it's the beginning. Let's see what happens. So then I get to the first vampire you fight when you're trying to get the fire station. And man, my first vampire fight was just such a mess. I'm literally shooting this vampire. He's zipping all over the places. He's trying to claw me. Again, he's running in a straight line just trying to claw me. All I gotta do is just jump away from him and he can't hit me. And then, you kill him, you get to stake him in the heart. That's cool. I like how, the iconic myth of you have to shove a stake in a vampire's heart to fully kill it. Cool. I'm glad that they put that in. And then the little montage of everybody setting up the fire station was just so bad. Like, you could just see the rush development in that alone. I'm like 15 minutes in the game and I'm like, this game was rushed. Like, come on, dude. This game was rushed. And I think this game was supposed to come out last year or a while ago, 7 months ago. What the hell were they going to release then? Like, seriously, if you think about what we have now and how rushed it was now and what we could have gotten 7 months ago, man, shit would have made... I'm trying to think of one of the buggiest games. Shit would have made Anthem look good, just of how bad that could have been. But anyways, so I played a bit more, afterwards. After I did the fire station, I turned the game off. This was at like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of done playing this game right now. I'm going to try it another time. So then I played a bit more the next day. And I played a little bit more earlier today as well. And I'm conflicted. So the game is trash. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The game is trash. The game is very, very buggy. It's very, very bland. It's very boring, very generic. But, it's not the worst game I've ever played. I'm going to definitely attach some clips of just some bugs that kind of happened. There was a couple times where I'm looking at bodies and they were like sketching out and people are just getting lost behind furniture and the vampires just not seeing me. The AI, like I would stealth punch somebody beside someone and they didn't see me and I would just quickly just take 2 steps to the right and stealth punch that person, and then someone else who should have saw me didn't see me and I would just crouch behind them. And also the character I played, Jacob, literally breaks the game. He's got a move where he can camouflage himself or go invisible. And you know how in most games, when you go invisible or you hide, they're still aggro. The enemies are still looking for you. They're like, oh, you think you can get away from me? Yeah, no, the second you go invisible, even though an enemy is looking at you going invisible, they just like forget you existed. They forget that you're even there. And then you can just go and stealth punch them or do whatever you want to do. I couldn't believe that this character broke that game that much. So, I mean, definitely if you want to play single player, he's a good character to play just because you can literally break the game and you don't really need any, team members. Again, I also want to say that I didn't play this game co-op. I know, like most games, you can have the worst game ever, but once you play with friends, there is some enjoyment out of it. I didn't get a chance to play any co-op. I tried to have some of my friends download this game, but they saw how trash it looked and they don't want to waste their time. And you know what? I respect that. Anyways, so um, this game's not the worst game. It's not the worst game I played ever. There's still some enjoyment out of it. It's one of those games like a Bethesda game, like an actual true Bethesda developed game where, it's so buggy, but there's still enjoyment out of it. There's still, I don't really want to compare it to that because Bethesda games still kind of have a charm. They have their own identity. But you know what I mean? Like there is some fun to be had with it. Just I guess the simple act of just having a gun first person, shooting enemies and killing vampires. That's cool in a way. But I just can't believe that Arcane released this. And I just can't believe Xbox let this go. Like they obviously knew how buggy it was. Xbox has kind of had a shitty couple weeks, month, or whatever. The whole Activision thing happening, and they've had numerous delays. All their games that have come out, other than Hi-Fi Rush, have gotten some scrutiny to it. Like Halo was good at launch. Now it's not. They had some really bad a lot of bad post development with the game. They take too long to release content, and people just kind of jumped off that game, which is a shame. I literally bought my Series X for Halo Infinite, and we saw how that turned out. Now my Series X just chills under my desk collecting dust. But anyways, aside from that, Xbox really needed a good game. They really did. And it just sucks that they didn't have it. And the only other game that they have coming out that is getting some traction is Starfield. And to be honest, I don't know how I feel about Starfield anymore. I never really was too crazy with Starfield. It was one of those games, again, kind of like Redfall. Like when it comes out, I'll try it out. If it's good, it's good. If it's not, whatever. I got Game Pass. I got Game Pass on PC as well. I'll try it out. That's the beauty of Game Pass. But I'm now starting to see the problem with Game Pass is that Game Pass, it's a lot like Netflix, right? It's a streaming service. You're getting games for free from a subscription based. And I've noticed with Netflix that these Netflix originals, they started off so good when Netflix started doing these originals, and now the quality is just dispersed so much. It's so bad now. There's so much trash on it. And the same thing is happening now with Game Pass. And Jim Ryan from Sony even warned that, like, yeah, you can do a subscription based model, but the quality of the games that come out is good to distinguish. And that's exactly what I'm seeing. Like it's actually what happened. And that's why Sony and Nintendo, they know that they're gonna give you a quality game and they're gonna release it full price, but it's gonna be a good game. It's gonna be different. It's gonna have its own identity. You're gonna have fun with it. It's gonna be worth the price. And that's the biggest thing. It's gonna be worth the price. Now, I got this game with Game Pass. Luckily, this game was on Game Pass, but could you imagine if, let's say, this wasn't on Game Pass day one, or Game Pass didn't exist? Imagine people paying. I live in Canada, so it would have been $89.99 or $79.99 maybe, but $80 to $90 Canadian, so $70 US for this game that's this bad with this much bugs, and that they said that they're gonna fix later, and especially on console when you're stuck with Xbox 30 FPS. Like, could you just imagine there's already outrage going on with this game, but can you imagine if that was the case? I got on a rant. I kind of stopped talking about the game, but going back to the gameplay, I mean, there's some cool ideas, like the whole stake in the heart. There's some cool guns. The UV gun it's a good idea. It's, the execution's not there, but it's a good idea, and I can respect them trying something new. It's like it turns the vampires into stone, or like the stake shooter, like where you're shooting stakes at the freaking enemies, and you can kill them from a distance. You can like one shot them. Cool, like that's cool. All right, I applaud that kind of innovation. But man, the rest of the game, and then another thing, when I was watching some of the previews before this game came out, like months ago, they were talking about how they had these vampire nests and how these vampire nests were really cool and they were like these cool little dungeons that were like all abstract looking. So I did my first one, and it was a hallway. You're walking down a hallway, everything's all distorted, and then you have to sever the heart, and then you have like 30 seconds to collect a bunch of loot before it explodes and you have to leave. All right, I was like, okay, that was all right, I guess. Like, you still have to shoot at same kind of enemies, the same vampires that just run straight at you, whatever. There's like a boss vampire at the end, like a mini boss, and it had a different attack, but it was still pretty underwhelming. And then I did a second one, and it confused me because they were kind of near each other on the map. And I did a second one, and the entrance was the same. So I'm like, did I do this one already? And then I walk a little bit straight, and the next section is kind of the same. And I'm like, yo, what the, like, did I do this? Like, am I just like repeating this? Can I leave? But I still decided to keep going. And then I saw a little difference. Like, this one had a house in the middle instead of just another empty street. Again, you're still just going straight, but and it had like these different vampires that can like chill on buildings and they watch you and they can shoot you or whatever. So I'm like, okay, this is a different one, but why is it exactly the same as the other one? And I did that, finished it, and then I saw there's like two more vampire nests, and I just said to myself, like, nah, I'm not doing these. Like, it's the same shit. They're just reusing, for one, they're reusing assets from the actual map. But, it's like an abstract world vampire nest. I guess in universe it can make sense. But the fact that they're reusing like actual parts of each vampire nest, they're not even taking different assets from different parts of the map. No, they're using the same asset from the same map for the 70% of the freaking vampire nest. I'm like, why the hell am I gonna do it? Cool, for like more loot? Like, I don't give a shit about the loot. And like, I think the vampire nest is a very good idea. I think that having these nests where they live and it's all abstract, I think that was a cool concept. I think that they really thought outside the box there. It's just how lazy it was put together. And I think that's just the story of everything about this game. I mean, shit, even look at how the cutscenes are portrayed. They're just still images, like really bad still images with narration on it. Like, you guys really couldn't animate even simple dialogue scenes. Like, all your other games have cutscenes, or they do the whole Bethesda thing where they have someone talking to you and they have story like told to you in person, and you can move around. It's first person, so it's somewhat immersive. But how they did it here was just brutal. Like, I couldn't believe it that Arcane has just cheaped out so hard on the presentation of this game, and it just backtracks everything because their other previous works had such great presentation. It was simple, but it worked, and there were cutscenes through first person in game that made you still feel like you were part of the story. And I really feel like they dropped the ball on that. Like, I'm kind of embarrassed on their behalf because of how bad these cutscenes look. I mean, I'm gonna share some images on it, but geez, like, really? But okay, so I just shown the game for the last, I don't know, what, 18 minutes or whatever. There is still some fun that can be had. Like, once I got past the whole tutorial part, I was sucked in a little bit. I was able to find some enjoyment, even though the game is buggy, even though the frame rate drops, even though the world is bland. Like, I was still able to have a little bit of fun. Now, I'm very early in the game, and from what I've heard, it's more or less the same thing over and over again. I don't think the gameplay loop that I was playing is sustainable for more than 4 or 5 hours, which is where I am right now. Like, I've only played for about 4, maybe 5 hours. And I don't know if I could do 20 or whatever the camping is. I don't think I could do that. I think that this game really needs to go back to the drawing board. And it just sucks because nowadays the gaming industry is all about releasing half-broken products, sometimes even half, sometimes less, and fixing it later. And it's like, why is it like that? Back in the old days, I'm dating myself a little bit, but back before, games shipped what was on it, and that's all that they had, because you couldn't do updates on like the PS2 or whatever, or the Xbox. You couldn't do updates on your game. So if your game shipped broken, that game's broken. There's nothing you can do about it. But now we're in this whole time where you can release a half-assed project and then just fix it and update it as time goes on. They still want your money. They still want the full amount of money, but then they're not going to put the work to justify why you're spending that money. And especially now when games have gone up. I understand that development cost has also gone up. I'm not gonna be oblivious to that. But really, you're gonna still charge us full price, and you're gonna give us a half-assed job. Why? I don't know, guys. It really kind of pisses me off of how the gaming industry is now. And I don't want to sound like a Sony pony, all right? Like I like all systems. I buy every single PlayStation, every single Xbox, every single console generation. I always do. I've had every single one. So I'm not playing on one side or the other. But at least I know when God of War Ragnarok came out, I knew I was gonna get a full experience. I'm not expecting a game to be flawless. It's gonna have issues. It's gonna have bugs. But I didn't have any buyer's remorse when I bought God of War Ragnarok. I didn't even buy Redfall. I got it on Game Pass. And I'm still feeling like cheated out from my subscription monthly cost. I think that's an issue. And I think that's something that's not talked about a lot. That Sony, yeah, they charge you a lot. Nintendo, yeah, they charge you a lot. But you're getting full experiences. You're getting a game that cost $100 million to develop. And they put their hard-earned work into it to deserve your money. And I think that's just a problem that Xbox is dropping, And it's not just Xbox, it's a lot of companies, Even, again, I spoke about Jedi Survivor. Jedi Survivor, great game. I'm going to be doing a review of that later. That will be coming out. It's a lot longer. I've been really busy right now, but that video will come out as well as another video. But Jedi Survivor, I mean, the console ports, they weren't nearly as bad, but there were still a lot of problems with it. And this is from EA. EA has a large fund that they can give to Respawn to develop that game, but it was rushed. And that's a lot of things, right? I know that video games is a business overall, and you have investors, and you gotta do all this, and you gotta get products out so that your investors are happy, so that they can get a good return. But is it worth making your investors happy for this quarter, but having your fan base completely pissed and distrusting you afterwards? No, it's not. Because when your next game comes out next year, and you got earnings as well, and your game bombs, your investors are going to be pissed afterwards. So in a way, you're pissing off both parties. Instead, if you take your time and work on a game and put your all in it, and it releases well, and it's well received amongst the community, that next quarterly earning, you're going to have a bunch of sales. Your investors will be happy and be like, you know what, maybe the delay was worth it. So, these have just been my thoughts right now. I've just kind of did a big rant. But games like this and situations like this really do trigger some people on how, this industry is really falling apart. And I'm glad that there are some companies, you're giving them your money and they're giving you their art. They're giving you what they worked on, and it works, So, going back to Redfall, the game is not great. I really do not recommend playing it. I don't even know if I'm going to beat it. I don't know if I'm going to stop after these 4 or 5 hours. I don't know. Maybe I'll continue it as like a backup game whenever I'm just bored and I got nothing else to play. Maybe. But I really hope that they can do a 180 on this game, because I do see a decent blueprint. I think that they could really make this good if they put the time and energy into it. But the reputation's already, killed. And I just hope that they're able to turn something around and make it a better game. Kind of like what Cyberpunk did. I mean, Cyberpunk did a huge 180 and it came back. And same with, games like No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky was critically panned, and the fan base really hated it. But now it's massive. It's a massive game, and they keep updating it and giving free updates. And I think that that's what they're gonna have to do in order to get this game back on its feet and to give Xbox a W in some sense. I hope Starfield is good. I mean, I really hope Xbox can turn it around, because I really do feel that proper competition allows all these companies to bring their A game, so we get actual real products. But when it's monopolized by one or two companies, that's when you start to see companies become lazy, because they know that they're your only choice. Now, going back to Redfall, it's not the worst thing ever. Hell, it's not even the worst vampire game ever. That belongs to Vampire Reign. I don't know if you guys remember that game from the 360, but that was a much worse vampire game than this. Um, but I can't recommend it, and I can't recommend that you use your time for it. You got school, you got work, and you got some off time, and you want to play some games, and you want to enjoy something and be immersed. I can't recommend this game to be that. Maybe just to see what all this negative hype is about, maybe download it on Game Pass if you really want to. But even then, I'd say why? Why you get to take up the hard drive space? But anyways, guys, that's all I want to say. Thank you so much for watching the video and listening to me rant for a little bit. Definitely hit that follow button or the subscribe button. And again, I will be releasing a Jedi Survivor video hopefully by next week, as I really need to get through the game. I'm about halfway done. But I will be releasing that, and I do have one more other video that I'm working on. I don't want to say too much. It's a little different, like I said in my RE4 review, than what we've kind of been speaking about since this channel started. But I'm really excited for that. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace.